generations. And now, the power of two restores the one.
We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video we are talking about the new Venom movie that dropped, The Last Dance. This is the third film in a trilogy. So there's the first one, then there's Let There Be Carnage, and then now we have The Last Dance. And so we're going to go ahead, tell you some non-spoiler opinions about the movie, give it a rating, and then we will talk about some spoilers and what the movie was about. So I guess I'll just kind of kick it off here. I would say I was excited for the film, but I think the film wasn't too great. I think it tried to almost be kind of like Deadpool, where it really wanted to lean into some comedy because we've had some really good comedy pieces from Venom in the past. But there really wasn't much of a structure to this film, which I think was really odd of a choice, especially considering one, what we kind of knew about Venom going into this movie, coming off of the second movie, and also the little blip that he had from Spider-Man uh, No Way Home, I think it was, the third one. He was kind of in that post-credit scene where he was sitting at the bar and, he got blipped into uh, Tom Holland's Spider-Man universe, also known as the MCU, and then he got blipped back to the Sony Spider-Man universe. And so, with all that hype and also in interviews, Tom Hardy keeps talking about how he wants to fight Tom Holland's Spider-Man. It was kind of like, is this going to be that film? And honestly, from the previews, I didn't really think we were going to get that film. Uh, I will say it's not a spoiler, needless to say, we do not get that film. It is all over the internet that that is not what happens here. But yeah, I feel like it was a movie where if Venom had a season of a show, that this would be kind of one of those get me over slash filler episodes, and then we would get on to the main point, just because it doesn't really feel connected in terms of what we've already established for Venom. So, also, I think some of the humor is getting a little um, overdone in a way. Like when you see the preview, there's the back and forth between Eddie and Venom, where Eddie is trying to do the "We are Venom" thing, and it takes him 3 times to get there. If they were just getting to know each other, I would think that's funny, but this is the third film and they should know each other. They should be on the same page for that, but they aren't. So I feel like, in my opinion, that's kind of how disconnected I felt to the movie. Like
Even just the
this,
fact that they had that in the trailer, like I felt like that joke was so overplayed by the time we actually
yeah,
saw the movie that when we saw that piece in the film, it just wasn't even funny anymore.
yeah. When it came up on the screen, I was kind of like, okay, let's get on with this joke really quick, even though it takes up way too much screen time for the low amount of laughs that it will get. So, yeah, I felt disconnected from the film. I feel like they should have done a completely different direction than what they did. And of course, we'll talk about that more in the spoilers. So, Sarah, what did you think of the movie?
So I agree with the majority of your thoughts there, but aside from that, I do think there were some fun times. There were some good jokes, some good laughs, some cringy things that I thought were that at least kept me in the theater watching to see what would happen next. I wouldn't say that it was a fantastic movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think it was total crap either. Um, I I think the biggest thing that I could say or agree with you on is that it kind of felt like a filler episode. Like there were some good parts, there were some bad parts, but overall, we didn't really get anywhere. We didn't really accomplish anything major. We didn't really get a feeling of satisfaction of like, oh, that was a great film, or there was just kind of a lack of identity, I think, overall.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I
Um,
think I think one of the other things that you said coming out of the theater that I would identify with, and I'm not sure that you've said here, is that it's almost kind of like a greatest hits type thing for Venom, just like a series of really good or fun moments, like the one behind me. I don't know why that was even in the film. I don't remember if this is in the trailer or not, but just,
it is.
okay, thank you. Um, I don't think it was necessary in the film. I think it was a ridiculous thing to add. And that's really about what it was something ridiculous to help you get from point A to point B. It didn't mean anything. It didn't add anything. I don't know. It was just really weird.
We'll also talk about why that scene makes absolute no sense in terms of what's going on in the movie. Um, because once you think about the threat that they are, trying to avoid, this whole dance sequence is like, why on earth would you be doing that? But
Yeah.
let's see. One of the things I thought was interesting about this film is that I hope I'm saying his name right, Reese Ifans. So he plays a character called Martin, and they basically plays the dad in a random family in this movie. And we do see him in the trailer. It's interesting that he's in this film because he is also in another Spider-Man project as a big character. He plays the Lizard in the Amazing Spider-Man series. So it really makes me wonder, like, how many different Spider-Man universe things are going on? Like, is Madam Web, Venom, Spider-Man, and they got Craven coming out? Are all these characters in different timelines or projects or multiverses? Or are they trying to put them all together at some point? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I didn't remember him as being from that film just because it's been so long since I've seen it. So I didn't think anything of it when I saw him in this film. But you know, in paying respect to the franchise, you'd think that that's something that you would pay attention to when you're doing the casting for the film. And it is kind of weird that they would have the same person for both. Not that it's completely unheard of, but it's not there's so many other options for this type of character. It's not like they needed somebody with a special set of skills or a certain charisma or, like I feel like there's a lot of other actors that could have played this part that they didn't necessarily need it to be him.
Well, I think the part of it that's also kind of insulting is when you watch the trailer and you see, he kind of looks like Dr. Connors, which is the lizard with the glasses, and maybe he just has a different hairdo in this one. And I don't think in the trailer, I don't think we see his arm per se, because he's like kicked up on one of the seats or something. But what's kind of clickbaity is that, if we see him and we know that that actor's been in the universe, does that connect the Lizard to Venom and then eventually to Spider-Man? And people want to see this fight between Venom and Spider-Man. So I think that is a little bait and switch on what's really happening in this movie. So uh, I could see people being very upset about that in a way. Um, yeah. Do you want to roll into ratings?
Um, Before we get there, there are two after credit type scenes, one that's like a mid credit, one that's an after credit. And by after credit, I mean after like all the credits. It was a long time and it was very weird because they weren't just playing typical movie music. I remember they played like a country song too. And not that I don't like country because I do, but like it almost takes you out of the film when they play music from today's world in the film. It just seemed really out of place.
The
And it
one
was
thing
very
I would
strange.
The one thing I'd say to that though is the songs that they picked kind of made sense because the Post Malone song, I believe is called I Got, I Got Some Help or something like that, and it's talking about how uh it's not just him that's doing something wrong. He does things because the other person does things too. I think one of the lyrics is um like you helped me pull the bottle off the shelf or something like that, where it's kind of talking about how Eddie and Venom are this couple, quote unquote, uh that get into trouble together. It's not just Eddie, it's not just Venom that causes all this stuff. So I can see where like that song would make uh, a justification for after the movie, but I heard when I was listening to some clips about other people talking about this, because I didn't know what the other song was. But I guess the other song that played during the credits, one of the lines was the perfect end to a trilogy. And so a lot of people were laughing at the fact that they chose that song with that lyric because of the way this movie went. But
Yeah.
yeah, interesting choices for music, but at the same time, I think I understand because of what is being talked about and what the movie is. But
Yeah, I think one of the other songs that was actually in the film, and I'm blanking on the name of the song now, but I think it was a Maroon 5 song, and it had similar enough where like it sounded weird because it's one of like today's I'm gonna use air quotes because I think the song's like 10 years old or something. I remember listening to it when I was in high school. And it had enough relation to the film that it kind of made sense with what was going on screen, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know, it seems kind of weird when they do stuff like that to me. At least with like a superhero movie. There's certain comedies and stuff where like it kind of makes sense or like yeah, it's part of the fun or even like Deadpool, I guess, where they played a lot of like 80s classics type like or Guardians of the Galaxy, they play a lot of like real music, not like in universe only type music. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being nitpicky, but it's always weird for me to hear a song like that. It seemed out of place.
yeah, I don't know. I know when Deadpool did NSYNC, it was absolutely perfect with how he did it. So I
But it
think
made sense in that film. It's the vibe of the film, I think.
yeah, I mean, if something from Dirty Dancing all of a sudden started playing during a Star Wars action sequence, yes, I think that would be very out of place. So it depends on what it is. What would you give Venom: The Last Dance for a rating?
Oh, this is so hard because coming out of the theater, I was pretty torn of I feel like I like it, but I feel like I'm not supposed to like it because I know so many people don't. But at the same time, I see I I think I gotta land at a 5. I feel like it's maybe being a little generous, but there were quite a few parts of it that I did enjoy when I was actually watching it. It's just that looking back, I'm like, huh, it wasn't really as great as I thought it was when I was watching it. But I did think, at least for some of it, that it was a fun watch. So I'm gonna land at a 5. I don't think it really deserves anything more than that, but I can't really give it anything less, just because I did have fun with some of it. So
It had
that's where
its moments, I would say, but yeah, I also think it's a very broken movie at the same time. I would go with a 4 out of 10. I One, the movie definitely isn't what I thought it would be, but also two, because it's not like, well, you didn't get what you wanted, so you're crapping on it. No, that's not the case. You also got to think about just what the movie is and the structure of it. And really, what this movie is just Venom literally walking between different things. It's kind of like he goes one place, walks a little bit, runs into somebody, does a little thing, walks some more. He's just kind of like on a big, long walking trail and happen to have little misadventures along the way. And then there happens to be an overarching plot that has to do with the symbiote. So,
Yeah,
I just
that overarching plot we get pretty good from the trailer. I was not necessarily surprised by what the movie was because I felt like the trailer did a pretty good job of saying, here's what you're gonna get.
I was just hoping that there was going to be something that we didn't know about that would have been interesting that we were gonna get. Like, yeah, they talk about in the trailer how Venom's like home world or whatever, the symbiotes are being hunted and they have to do something about it.
Hmm.
And that's basically what the only driving piece of the plot is, the whole movie. There's no real big side pieces aside from a couple of characters that also interact with some symbiotes, but that's about it. Um, so yeah, I'm at a 4 because I feel like the story really wasn't even worthwhile telling. Uh, I don't think it's a good movie to end on. Like a lot of times people say, well, sequels aren't supposed to be as good. Like Lord of the Rings proved that incredibly wrong because their sequels are phenomenal and they do show that a third movie can be fantastic. And I think Venom, Venom's a very, very cool character, very cool characters around him in universe. So I think they could have done a little bit better job. They could have at least done some things that made more sense in the film, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Um, so yeah, I'm at a 4 out of 10 on this one. So we're
I
gonna
think that's
try.
fair.
We're going to transition to some spoilers. So, uh, what I will say, because I mean, Sarah just said it a second ago, you get a very good idea of what's going to happen in this movie from the trailer. There's not much outside of that trailer, aside from, and again, we're in the spoiler section, aside from, we're led to believe that Venom is dead. Like the symbiote is dead. Aside from that, there's not much more that there is to know.
Well,
Um,
and even the trailer said one of them has to die. So it was either going to be Eddie or it was going to be Venom. One of them had to die. And even the poster says, till death do us part,
right.
because they have to part.
Right. So what is this movie about? Well, I thought I thought the opening sequence was very strong. I don't know about you, Sarah, but they establish the evil in this movie right away. And that's kind of what gave me some hope about this movie maybe being pretty good because I'd never heard of this villain before. I think his name was Null, and basically he's trapped in this chair. He was locked away there by the symbiotes a long time ago, but he needs this thing called the Codex to release him. And the way that a Codex is spawned is if a person is like either about to die or does die, and the symbiote gives them life and brings them back, and that bonding creates the Codex. And so if he's brought a codex, then he can be released from the chair. And so he sends off his little minion creatures to go out into the galaxy and find a codex. And like I said, I was super on board with this character, never seen him before. He looked cool, sounded really evil, and so I was kind of excited, to be honest. What did you think of that opening sequence?
I thought he looked so boring because we barely saw any of him, and his hair was covering he had really long hair, right? So his hair was covering his face. So it was just like a puppet talking. Like it meant nothing to me. I don't know. I thought that the creatures he sent out were 1,000 times cooler than he was. I really liked the creatures.
First of all, how dare you? Because he looks a lot like my Dungeons and Dragons character, not gonna lie, Legion. So,
I don't know
um,
how you could say that because we only saw his face for like 2 seconds at the very end of the movie.
I just thought he was, very ominous and threatening. I know he was locked to a chair, so nah, 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 you can't do anything. But I mean, once he got the Codex, then he could unleash probably some crazy evil. But I
He was a
I
Darth
thought
Sidious wannabe with some hair.
interesting. Okay, so then we're moving on to Eddie, and again, listen here. So he blips back into his universe. So we pick up right after the after credit scene from the Spider-Man film, and he's on the run. He does leave a piece of symbiote behind in that other universe, just like we saw from the Spider-Man thing. But he's now in his own universe, and we get this really weird sequence where Venom wants a drink, and so they destroy the bar trying to make a mixed drink. But what's interesting leading after this is that uh, Eddie, he's trying to leave where he's at because people are trying to find him, and he sees a Statue of Liberty. And so between him and Venom, they're like, let's go back. Let's go to New York. Let's just get out of here and go to this place, which that's where Spider-Man is. And so there's so many like little cookie crumbs along the way to lead to Spider-Man, but I don't think he doesn't get to New York until like the very end of the film, right?
Correct. After Venom's dead.
Yeah. So we spend this whole movie doing the plot from the trailer, and then yes, he does get to New York, and he has
I
these
feel
like
like
visions of reflection. I want to squeeze in one more thing before I let you. So yeah, he gets to New York at the end of the film. We see this like flash of him thinking about all the times he had with Venom, and I thought it was kind of an odd thing to do because I would say that I'm not incredibly invested into Venom. I don't know anybody that is kind of like, yes, this Venom is the awesome Venom we've always been wanting. Like the the fact that they set up a flashback of him thinking of all these moments of the first two films, and how the third film used a lot of the camera um not angles, but setups that mirrored things from the other films, and how it was like poetry in a way to the other films. I thought that was very, very odd to do in this film, just because I feel like I didn't feel hardly attached to the Venom character at all. But okay, that's my rant. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say it was really kind of cliche. There was a lot of cliche moments throughout the film. Even just the idea of you losing a loved one so you continue on the dream to go to the place you said you were always going to go to together, but now you're by yourself because the other one's gone. Like it's just a big movie cliche, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, this movie is about him going to New York. And how does he get there along the way? There's a running joke that he loses his shoes all the time, which is kind of weird. But they're
And how
trying to go
Crocs
to,
are the best.
what's that?
And how Crocs are the best.
Yes. So their idea to get to New York is to hold on to an airplane so that they can get all the way over there. And I believe this is the first instance that the creatures from Knoll catches up to them and attacks them. And so they're duking it out on the plane. This is from the trailer, and basically Brock jumps off of the plane and falls as far as he possibly can before Venom intervenes to be a parachute. Now, the reason why he waited to the last second is because when Venom is out and about, that's when these creatures from Null can sense the codex.
When the two are fully morphed together.
Right. And so they're trying to avoid being like the Venom that we know, which if you think about it, Sarah's thing behind her where Venom is doing this dance with Miss Chen.
Okay.
Do you remember, was that an out of body experience for Eddie, or was Eddie actually in the symbiote?
Oh, Eddie was in the symbiote.
So that means they do this dance sequence and they risk the chance of being spotted just so they can dance with Mrs. Chen.
Eddie did not want to do this, and he, I think, vehemently was saying we should not do this because we're gonna show off the codex, blah 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 blah. But they were like, "Come on, just do one dance, blah blah blah," and they were all whiny about it. And long story short, Venom took over and just did it anyway.
Right, which makes no sense at all. But anyways, I digress. Let's go back. So when they leave this airplane, the first thing that I thought of was, what happened to that airplane? Did they cover at all what ended up happening to those people on the plane? Like, did the plane crash or did they make it?
Um, well, we saw that the weird creature thing got sucked into the engine. which, then it got disintegrated in the engine, which would make you think that the plane would crash because of that. But I don't think so. I think the plane somehow lands. We don't really cover it, but I think the plane somehow lands slash it's not a mass murder. It's not him being framed for all these murders again. It just kind of alerts the authorities that something crazy went on. But before we even get to that plane, there's the scene of them still in Mexico where they hear a what is it? They hear a cry, and so they're wondering what's going on. And I couldn't really hear what they were hearing, but they were trying to investigate and snoop around. And that's where we get the "We Are Venom" scene because they
Hmm.
see a whole bunch of dogs locked up that are apparently they know are for dog fighting, and so they just kick a bunch of butt and get rid of these guys that oh, it's that Venom's hungry. That's what it was we hear a cry for help. Venom's hungry. They want to be vigilantes and kick some butt and basically let Venom eat some bad guys. That way he could get more energy for their trip.
Yeah, I was skipping over that because I didn't see it as super significant. But yeah, that whole awkward scene from the trailer that is right away, right after he leaves the bar, and messes up the bar. But
Yeah. So
uh,
and we have the scene of the plane, and then we're walking through kind of the Nevada desert, and
he eventually stumbles across a horse that's just sitting there in a random house, and that's where we get the scene where Venom merges with the horse from the trailer, and they take off and
so that
try
was
to.
that was one of the times where I actually really enjoyed it. I know we saw it in the trailer a little bit, or him asking about it, but just the dynamic between Eddie and Venom of Venom being so chaotic and Eddie just having to put up with it. I just think that relationship's really fun, and this was one of the times where it really shined through.
Yeah. Before we get too far away from it, there also is this plot going on with Area 51, which they eventually all meet up later on in the film. So at Area 51, there's been this decision by the United States to close down Area 51, and they're 3 days away from being fully taken down. And we do get I think it's officer or sergeant, one of the two. Strickland, he's in charge of the base and the operations of um, taking down everything. And we see as part of the destruction, part of the base that they're using like this green acid thing to melt different pieces of the base, and that plays a big role later on. But what we also learn about this base is that they have more symbiotes, so they have like six of them, I think.
Something like that. I didn't count.
They have them all attached down there, and they also brought in somebody that is now a host of one of the symbiotes that was not at the base. They bring him in.
Wasn't he the guy that had the Carnage symbiote? Because that's who Eddie. So Eddie is wanted for murder of this guy who we find out is actually alive and being kept in Area 55, I think is what they call it, or 53. It's underground below Area 51. Um, but I think that's who this guy is the guy that Eddie supposedly killed before. And I thought he was the original Carnage symbiote host.
I don't fully remember because I know, oh, what's his name? The actor that plays in Solo, Woody Harrelson. He's Carnage.
Oh, he was Carnage? Okay.
But
Well,
this
that's just how much
guy,
I remember that film.
but the character Detective Mulligan, who Sarah is referring to, he was in the second film. Um, I think maybe he just got attached to a different symbiote, being this one. And so he's brought in into isolation, essentially. We also have, I believe her name was Dr. Teddy Payne, Dr. Payne. And so she's the one that's observing all these symbiotes and, taking note of what their behavior's like and what us humans can do to interact with them and finding hosts. And so, she wants to learn from Mulligan what's going on, how does he feel, because it's pretty rare to find somebody that actually can link up with the symbiote. And so we get kind of an exposition dump from Mulligan because he basically informs Dr. Payne about what is coming because of the Codex stuff and how the all the people are trying to, or all the symbiotes are trying to hide from them.
Which how he even knows that was beyond me because how would he know that the Codex is live
Right? I don't know.
or that those creatures are here?
Because yeah, because he was, it seemed like he was, you know, pretty out of it between, where he was in the second movie up until this part. We do learn a little bit about Dr. Payne. Like when she was younger, her brother died. They were holding hands running along the beach, and she got hit by lightning, but the lightning traveled to her brother because they were holding hands and killed him, but messed up her arm a little bit. Um, so we get that backstory, which kind of plays a little bit of a role later on. But that's basically what we know about her. And I think that's roughly the matching point of where we're at with Eddie. So Eddie, he meets this family, the one where Martin is a part of it. Also, the wife's name is Nova, and they have a couple of kids, Echo and Leaf. Basically, just seem to be the average family traveling around in a little bus or van, I should say. They're doing a cookout. They offer Eddie some food. Uh, it's kind of funny because Eddie gets a plate and Venom absolutely does not want to eat that food, so he chucks it right away. So the family's like, "What in the world is wrong with this guy?" But they let it be, and they offer to let Eddie kind of ride with them. And along the way, I mean, we have some character development moments where the family is doing a sing along in the van, and Eddie wants nothing to do with it. So that's kind of your tongue-in-cheek, funny, awkward moments for him as a character. But ultimately, where they're taking him is to Vegas. Very random to take him to Vegas. And so,
Well, to them, he's just a hitchhiker, and they said, "Well, we can take you to Vegas because that's on their way to Area 51." And so that's, we'll get you. You're going to New York, we can get you to Vegas. We'll get you at least that far.
yeah. So this is where we see from the trailer, there's the casino. In the trailer we see Eddie has a suit. Well, at this point he doesn't. He just has his clothes from all the other days. And so when he's looking around, he sees someone drunk, I assume, peeing on one of the structures of the casino. And when the guy turns around to see Eddie, he pees on Eddie's foot. And then Eddie knocks him out and then takes his clothes from him and tells, I don't know, I think it was security or something that somebody was over there drunk and knocked out and for them to take care of it. But puts on the suit, goes in the casino. Venom wants to play slot machines, which is kind of weird. Um, so he puts in all their money and just continuously pulls the button until they run out of money. Looks like you were going to say something.
I just thought that this was another one of the really fun times because it's everybody with when they're gambling, right? You think you're gonna hit big, you just gotta hit the next one, then you're gonna hit big. And all Venom wanted was to turn that $20 into like a lot of money because that's what everybody goes to Vegas for. And then he's like, "Well, we need more money." And he's like, "We don't have any more money. Like that's it." What? So just I don't know. It was another one of those everyday things that having Venom experience it, I thought was fun. But
But
that's when they
then,
meet Mrs. Chen because they see her over. She was winning big. I guess supposedly she'd been winning so big that they gave her the penthouse suite. So they went up to her suite so that they could get cleaned up and whatnot. Although I'm not sure why they were getting cleaned up because they were already in a suit. But then that's when they do the whole dancing thing, which was
I mean, I would
really
want to clean
weird.
my foot if I got peed on.
Yeah, but he was already in shoes and stuff. Wouldn't you want to do that before you put some shoes on?
Yeah, but I don't think they were going to let him into the casino with no shoes.
Yeah. But yeah, so they're up in that suite, and I think at this point, Strickland knows that the only way to get rid of the Codex and to get rid of these creatures is if either Eddie or Venom dies. So now he's not just wanting Eddie for the murder, but he's wanting him so he can kill him. Or one or the other. So we've got kind of a twofold situation here, right? Because we've got those creatures going after Venom because they are doing that dancing scene for whatever reason and just basically waving a big flag saying, "Here we are."
Come get
But
me.
then we also have throughout the film they've been showing a lot of security footage like Eddie got out of the van, a security camera picked it up. Eddie went in the casino, a security camera picked it up. And so that's, I guess, how Strickland knows where he is. Aside from the creatures also showing like, hey, he's right here. So we get a big snafu of that going on. This is when Eddie, I think, actually gets captured, isn't it?
I think so. Yep. So he gets captured, he gets put into, which that's kind of like really convenient, right? Because we need to bring all these characters together by the end of the film. So he gets captured by Strickland, so now he's at Area 51 or 53, like you mentioned in the basement. And the creatures track them to there, and the detective Mulligan's and his symbiote is trying to help out Eddie and Venom, but really they sacrifice themselves so that Venom can get away. This whole time, though, like Venom is also having a really hard time with um, managing just one of these creatures that are hunting him. Well, once Null finds out that, this is where the codex is because one of the monsters sends out a homing beacon of, hey, send them here. Well, now we got tons of these creatures here now at Area 51. So, Venom gets out into the open, above ground. And then that's where he has to, well, him and the U.S. military have to try to take out these creatures. Um, Martin's family shows up, so they see all the creatures, and he's just astounded to see what's going on. But ultimately, what this leads to is Venom and Eddie have this little heart to heart, like Sarah mentioned earlier, that it's got to be one of us that's going to take them out, and Venom is going to volunteer to do that. And what he decides to do is to basically web together all the monsters and then take them to that acidy liquid that we saw earlier and talked about earlier. Um, Basically, sit under that, hold them there, open it up, and let it disintegrate everything. So,
We did get a somewhat cool fighting scene sequence before the acid bath because all of the symbiotes that were there got loose. So, I
yeah.
mean, we had a whole bunch of different kinds of symbiotes, and one that reminded me, one that we didn't see until the very end, I should say, where she had like the really, really long, webby hair. And that reminded me a lot of, was it Spider-Gwen that had that? Or what?
When we played the Spider-Man 2 PlayStation game,
Yes.
Mary Jane had that.
Yes, thank you. I was like, I recognize this from somewhere, but I can't pick where it's from.
But isn't she the one that had the electricity? Because that was Dr. Payne, I thought, right?
Yes.
Because
Yep.
that's what's significant about her backstory is, she survived a lightning strike, and now here when she links up with a symbiote, she has some electric powers.
Yep.
But yeah, there was a big action sequence where the symbiotes were trying to, take out these threatening creatures from Null. And really it wasn't going anywhere. They weren't getting any extra ground, and so that's why Venom decided to sacrifice himself.
Can we just take a second and talk about how cool those creatures were? I know I said earlier that I really liked them, but something that I think we forgot to mention is when those creatures ate something, like ate a human or ate a symbiote or whatever, it
Vacuum.
basically shot out of their back, like as if you'd went through a lawnmower, like spraying blood in chunks everywhere through the back of their neck. Like it was just insane. I thought those beasts were really cool.
They were neat. I think I enjoyed seeing all the different symbiotes a little bit more myself. Even though I feel like it would have been cooler to see more of those symbiotes, but like more screen time.
It almost kind of felt like we only saw one or two of them at a time, but there were like six total.
Yeah, it was a pretty quick, like they were quick. They didn't focus on any one particular too long. They were very quick with it to show all the different ones and give each one of them some sort of cool shot and then focus more on Venom and how they were going to wrap this up.
Yeah.
How long was this movie? Let's see. Uh,
So Eddie's part for helping these guys out, for getting rid of these creatures, is that he gets pardoned from all of his crimes as long as he never talks to anybody about any of this ever, right? So Eddie's a free man, and he goes to New York to kind of finish out him and Venom's, final wish of going to see the Statue of Liberty and stuff. That's where we get, again, I want to say it was a Maroon 5 song. I can't remember exactly what one it was. But talking about looking back at memories and whatnot, and we get the flashbacks of all the good times that they had, and I thought it was kind of weird of, you finally get to see the Statue of Liberty and he's not even like there. He's like way across the bay, super far away from it. So I don't know. It was kind of a weird place to choose to shoot the film. Um, but yeah, that's essentially the end of the film.
well, now he's in New York, and maybe he'll pick up photography, and maybe that's how he'll run into um, Peter Parker because I mean, that's how it happened in the other Spider-Man universe with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire. That's how they met, is at the photography or the Daily Bugle. Um,
And somehow one of Venom's last things that he said was that it was goodbye for now or something along those lines. It wasn't goodbye forever, it's goodbye for now. He said it in such a way that it makes me feel like they might not have this be the last dance, or maybe there'll be some sort of something. I don't know. It left it vague.
it's strange. So maybe like his trilogy is over, but he'll make appearances in other projects. Like if let's say there is, the a rumored Amazing Spider-Man 3 that's gonna come out at some point for Sony, which I think would be huge. Like if that could be the film where they do meet, or um if somehow if they make it a way to have because Tom Hardy keeps talking about wanting to fight Tom Holland in the MCU, but he already went to the MCU and then back to his own. They would have to find some way for him to go back again, unless they're trying to say that there's a different. See, that wouldn't make too much sense to me, as if they said there's another Tom Holland type Spider-Man in his universe. I would think that would be Andrew Garfield because that was Sony's Spider-Man, at least the last one that they had. So I don't know how it's all gonna work out, but I could see him being in just bits and pieces of other films. Maybe they won't make another Venom film. One thing I did want to point out though with the runtime, so the first movie was an hour and 52 minutes, which is, in my opinion, a little short of what it should be for superhero films. But then Carnage, the Let There Be Carnage, that was an hour and 37 minutes. So that was hardly a 90-minute film, which it definitely felt rushed in that movie. But in my opinion, that one's actually probably one of my favorites because I really liked Carnage and seeing how things were happening. But it really made me wonder if they were going to continue that trend of having the low runtime with this one. And this one was an hour and 50 minutes. So they did kind of go back to like the first one as far as the runtime. But I do think there probably could have been some more things that were flushed out here, or maybe connect or create a different storyline that would have made more sense. I don't know. Like I said, I feel like this movie, even though it's almost 2 hours, really felt like a filler in some sort of season, and that's unfortunate.
Well, when you're making the trek from Mexico to New York and you only make it as far as Vegas or Nevada Area 51, you didn't make it very far.
No, and then they just, time jump it to when he's there. Like, forget all the rest of the states. Nothing cool happened there. I mean, I guess he doesn't have Venom anymore, so I mean, why would we care about what's going on with Eddie for that time? But we didn't talk about the after credit scenes. So there's two of them, right? The first one was about Null and basically him pledging that he's gonna have his revenge no matter what kind of a thing. And then the second one, I didn't quite understand. So the guy, the bar guy from the very beginning, he leaves a cave.
So he had been taken for being the last person to have seen Eddie,
Oh, that's right.
and they found that little bit of black goo symbiote there too. And they both got taken to Area 51 because he's a prisoner, because you might have information to help us. And so he's leaving this cave thing because he's leaving Area 51 after all the fights and everything happen. Somehow he's able to get out of his cage or whatever. So that's why he's leaving a cave.
But then he just sees, Area 51 is destroyed and that's it. And then there's a bug, like a fly, that connects slightly with a symbiote or gets zapped by it. There's a little capsule that's broken and a fly touches it. And so I don't quite understand what that's trying to insinuate, but
It makes me wonder if that's the teeny part of Venom that like got left on the coin that they left at the bar or something like that. And so somehow that can grow to be him again or something. I don't really know how that stuff works, but I feel like that's some sort of little piece of him.
could be. I thought it was pink, so that's why I was confused, but I
Oh, maybe it was. I don't remember that close to remember.
I don't either. But yeah, so that's basically all that I have for the film. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Oh, I feel like that wraps it up pretty good.
Nice. So yeah, a five from Sarah, a four from me. Again, the movie just didn't quite seem to make sense. Like I don't understand how there was so much setup for Venom, and then this is what we got. And so I don't know. We'll just have to see what the future holds. But that was our discussion on Venom: The Last Dance. So if you want to see more of these types of videos in the future, make sure to turn on notifications or subscribe to the channel. Sarah, what's our next movie we're going to see since I have such a hard time pronouncing it?
Heretic.
I'm excited for that one. The lead actor, he's been very, very intriguing as of late with all the different roles he's had, and I think the movie looks really cool. So I'm excited for that. So stick around here for what our thoughts are on that one. Drop us a like if you liked the video and drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on Venom: The Last Dance. And then as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.